Hello, welcome back to this MidEast in-depth section, part of Levant TV's press reviews. Today we will be looking at the situation in Iraq as the country is seeing candidate campaigns for the upcoming presidency. As Iraq prepares for parliamentary elections at the end of this month, residents have complained about the excess of electoral posters, and some parties are accused of using government resources in their campaigns. In central Baghdad's Karada district, posters covered the square adorned with a magic lantern statue by the well-known sculptor Muhammad Ghani Hikmat, while in Liberation Square the candidates not only displayed their pictures but also put up banners along the fence showing their photos and biographies. The Independent Higher Electoral Commission bars candidates from using government and security departments, houses of worship, schools or public property to promote themselves. It also bars ads near polling stations and security checkpoints, but the candidates have not abided by these rules. The Election Commission has mobile teams monitoring violations and has vowed to impose stiff penalties on violators. Hakim Abdul Zahra, the director of media relations in Baghdad's secretary, said the Secretariat of Baghdad has formed committees to monitor violations and inform the electoral commissions, whose duty is to warn and punish violators. In an interview with Al Monitor, he added, other parties affiliated with the commission work in the same contexts. Abdul Zahra indicated that the Secretariat has spotted major irregularities, especially in parks and medians in the capital. The process of posting electoral ads has damaged plants and the infrastructure. And Member of the Parliament Mohammed Al-Lakkash said the political conflict has reflected negatively on the electoral campaigns. There have been uncivilized practices whereby posters and pictures of candidates have been torn down. Some political parties are using state resources for their campaigns. And also on Iraq, Rick Gladstone wrote for the New York Times. His Iraq's ambassador to the United States gently chided his host on Thursday, asserting that American fatigue with war, a consequence of the prolonged conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, had left his country's security more vulnerable and was contributing to Mideast instability. The ambassador Luqman Faili emphasized in an interview that he was not advocating a resumed American military presence in Iraq. No boots on the ground, he said. Mr. Faili also said that the United States should be more generous in providing other forms of assistance to Iraq, including greater intelligence sharing about security threats, more people-to-people exchanges in fields like culture, education and healthcare, and expedited delivery of billions of dollars in weapons and equipment that the Iraqi government has ordered. The ambassador asked the United States has an opportunity to strengthen its relationship in cementing what you already started in democratization and development. You have already invested in Iraq. You have already had your boys shed blood in Iraq. We have already shed our own blood, and we have already invested heavily in our own country. Faili then criticized what he described as the overly restrictive policies in the United States Embassy in Baghdad, which limit the ability of American diplomats to travel elsewhere in Iraq and effectively discourage Iraqis from applying for visas to work, study or travel to the United States. And in conclusion, Mr. Faili said the Americans were no longer viewed as occupiers in Iraq and that both the United States and Iraq have enormous shared interests, particularly in combating Al-Qaeda's presence in Iraq and in the war that has engulfed neighboring Syria. He said we also have a realization that the United States has influence in the region, and sometimes our frustration is that it doesn't utilize that resource and that influence to the benefit of both countries, Iraq and the United States, out of what we call before fatigue. Joining us now over the phone is documentary filmmaker David Lowley-Wakelin. His work includes the Alternative Iraq Inquiry. Thank you very much, David, for joining us on this Mideast in-depth section of our press review.
Good afternoon.
My first question, David, Iraq's ambassador to the US, Luqman Faili, asserted that American fatigue with war, a consequence of the prolonged conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan, had left his country's security more vulnerable and was contributing to Mideast instability. Do you agree, and why?
Well, no, actually, I don't think fatigue is the right word when he says the word fatigue. Americans aren't tired of Iraq. Americans are embarrassed by Iraq. I think if he'd said the word embarrassed, it'd have been a lot easier, because what's happened is they spent billions of dollars in the invasion. They spent billions more staying there for 10 years occupying Iraq, and then they sort of walked away, leaving the place empty-handed, and with this sectarian violence that's gone on ever since, killing over 2,000 people alone this year. So it's more. Luke Manfeli doesn't use strong enough language when in this article when he says that Americans are tired of Iraq. Americans want to forget Iraq and they want to brush it under the carpet because it's an enormous embarrassment to them, having gone in there for spurious reasons, for lying to their own people about the reasons they went there in the first place, when everyone knew it was for business.
Yes. And David, how do you relate the current instabilities in Iraq to the US-British war on the country? And do you think the damage in Iraq is irreversible?
Well, that's a very good question. I don't know about how reversible it is. It's certainly something which would take years to put right and comes back to the old, thousands of year old problem between the Sunnis and the Shias, which goes on. You have the Al-Anbar in the west of Iraq, which is obviously quite heavily Sunni, and then you've got the Shias in the east joining over to Iran. But these wars are built up by insurgent groups who are financed through places like Saudi Arabia and Qatar and so on, who don't want to see this war ever ending. They want to keep it going indefinitely within Iraq and also in Syria, because then they won't hopefully see revolutions and the like in their own countries. So I can't see an end to it, to be honest with you. How it was caused by the Americans and the British is quite clear. Saddam Hussein, as bad as he was, and certainly a terrible despot and a war criminal himself, and certainly what should have been removed one day, no doubt still had hold over the country. I mean, whilst he was in power, Sunnis and Shias would have Sunday barbecues together and all live happily together throughout Baghdad and all the other big cities of Iraq. And there was none of this sectarian war going on. So it's clear to see straight away that the Americans and the British led invasion of 2003 did in fact cause this sectarian war.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much again, David, for being with us today. Thank you.
Pleasure. Thank you.
That was David Lowley-Wakelin. In May 2012, he interrupted the Leveson inquiry during Tony Blair's statement, alleging that the back then British Prime Minister had been paid off by the American bank JP Morgan Chase for agreeing to take the United Kingdom into the war in Iraq. And for more updates, please visit levant.tv. Thanks for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow, and bye for now.